Welcome to PA History to Go, a series of videos presented by the Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission with funding from the Institute of Museum and Library Services. These short videos, filmed at locations along the Pennsylvania Trails of History, serve to introduce virtual visitors to our sites as we explore the varied stories that make up Pennsylvania's rich history. Watch them all to learn about the people, places, industries, and events that make Pennsylvania so special.
So when guests visit the Brandywine Battlefield Park, they often start their visit right here in the Visitor Center, where they have a chance to walk through our small exhibit gallery, as well as our gift shop, and view our 18-minute-long orientation film in our education room. From here, visitors are then escorted out to our two historic homes on either side of the park grounds, which are the Benjamin Ring home and the Gideon Gilpin home. Some examples of our exhibits include arms of the American Revolution, both British and American, infantry, artillery, different types of soldiers that fought here at the Battle of Brandywine. We also have our latest acquisition, which is known as a Cheval de Frise, which was used as a defensive mechanism in the Delaware River that recently washed up on shore in 2012. We also interpret the tale of the local inhabitants that lived in this area before, during, and after the battle, and their experiences and how they suffered to both the American and the British armies. Most of the artifacts in the museum are owned by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Others were acquired through various loans, donors, various private collections. Valley Forge has also donated or loaned us some artifacts. One of the first things that visitors see when they enter the museum exhibit gallery is the Cheval de Frise, a massive 20-foot piece of timber that was used as an obstacle by the Americans in the Delaware River to prevent shipping from coming up into Philadelphia. Being our latest acquisition, it's the latest thing to help tell the story of the Philadelphia campaign in its entirety and how the defensive measures went into place to prevent the British from entering Philadelphia, not just on land, one of the attempts that was made here at Brandywine by Washington, but also by sea. On either side of the park grounds, we have two historic structures that were both at the time owned by Quaker families. One home was owned by Quaker miller and farmer Benjamin Ring, who sided with Washington and the Continentals and hosted Washington for 2 days leading up to the battle, from September 9th to the 11th, 1777. It was here where Washington met with his officers to deliberate and discuss the strategies of the upcoming engagement, and also where Benjamin Ring fed and provided for Washington and his officers. There's an invoice in the dining room of the Benjamin Ring home that reflects 30 persons eating at 6 different times, amounting for about 22 pounds and 10 shillings, which tells us that Benjamin Ring and his family provided a substantial amount to Washington and his officers during their stay here. After the battle, Benjamin Ring suffers tremendously, being, 1, tied with the Continental cause, and 2, hosting Washington for 2 days. His home, one of the largest in the areas, was not treated with any respect, and Mr. Ring virtually loses everything to the might of the British forces. The Benjamin Ring home is unfortunately not the original structure that was here in 1777. In 1931, the home unfortunately burned down in a fire, and in 1949 was rebuilt to match as best as possible the exact specifications that would have been here in 1777. The interior matches to the best of its ability the exact floor plan that would have been here at the time of Washington's stay. The front parlor is set up to emulate the meeting room where Washington and his officers met the 2 nights before the battle. Across the hall in the dining room is where Washington more than likely would have had his dinner, eating at those 6 different times with 30 different people. The kitchen reflects a typical 18th century kitchen with the large hearth and the different utensils. And the back office in the rear of the structure reflects the business aspect of Mr. Ring's life, contributing to both his wealth and prosperity by owning a mill and a large portion of farmland. Across the park from the Benjamin Ring house is the Gideon Gilpin house, an original structure that dates back to 1745. This was the home of Mr. Gideon Gilpin, also a Quaker, but who tried to remain neutral throughout the first 2 years of the American Revolution and up until the Battle of Brandywine. Unfortunately, being a neutral Quaker in a battlefield landscape is not going to work out well. He also suffered tremendously to the British Army in the 5-day occupation following the Battle of Brandywine. Gideon Gilpin, being a cattle and wheat farmer, had 2 of the top 2 provisions on the daily rations of British soldiers. Gideon Gilpin lost upwards of 502 pounds, which equates to around $86,000 in today's currency. Because of this, Gilpin's neutrality quickly sways into the side of the Continental cause, and in 1778, he officially takes an oath of allegiance to Washington and the cause. For this, in 1779, he is read out of his Quaker meeting home for going against his strict testimony of peace that was mandated by the Quaker faith in order to gain membership. This shows that people like Gilpin are going to suffer so much that they abandon their everyday faith and ideologies that had guided them in the first 2 years of this conflict.